Mark, we just wanted to talk to you about what you and MJA did with Brianna Maitland's car in processing that car. Could you give us some detail on how that went?
It was on the last week of last weekend, September 2004. Mr. Maitland contacted us and said that the Vermont State Police had released Miss Maitland's car to the parents. Okay, on October 3rd and 10th, we processed Miss Maitland's car, totaling 8.5 hours processing. The processing team was myself, Mark Harper, and LJ. I was the only one who entered the vehicle. LJ handed me the tools when they were needed.
What type of tools do you typically use in a search like this?
Since it was during daylight, we had a 60-foot tarp to cover the vehicle complete. We had 5 different light sources: super glue, fingerprint dust, tape, fingerprint holders, swabs, evidence bags, envelopes, and latex gloves. The order in which we carry our work out in processing is an eye inspection, a light source inspection, and then a fingerprint inspection. By our inspection, we saw firsthand what was done by the Vermont State Police. The collection of evidence strongly points that there was a struggle in the vehicle, starting in the front seat and ending in the back seat. MJA collected evidence that we believe was missed by the Vermont State Police. MJA found 4 fingerprints that hadn't been collected. The Vermont State Police left behind in the vehicle some of their fingerprint tapes that looked to have readable prints on them. The 4 prints that we collected, it's a 70 to 30 chance that they are readable. They weren't very fine prints. Then also, with the light source, found minute traces of blood under the driver door armrest. See no evidence that the Vermont State Police took samples from these traces were so small that they would have collected them all. 3 green fibers. When fibers are separated, you're to collect all of them. 1 light blue syringe cap missed by the Vermont State Police. On May 15th and 16th, 2004, MJA found it and collected evidence that was related to the Maitland case. Items found: Victoria's Secret's underwear that matches Miss Maitland's size and style. 3 sets of flex cuffs that had been cut off, and there were traces of hair in the locking area of the cuffs. 1 syringe that happens to match the light blue syringe cap that was collected from Miss Maitland's vehicle. MJA turned over those items to the Vermont State Police at the St. Albans Barracks on May 16, 2004. The following Monday, MJA gets a call from the Vermont State Police detective ahead of the Maitland investigation at the time, stating, "The Vermont State Police can't test every item we turn in. Besides, female underwear syringes can be found all over the Vermont countryside. Since that time, MJA has failed to locate any more female underwear and syringes during our 12-year search for Miss Maitland." 2 of the samples that we collected, which I sent you photos to, if you blew up the photos, you'd see the writing we put in there. Okay, on the driver's side, there was vomit, and on the passenger side, there was vomit. We took samples of those because the simple fact there was food cartons in there. We wanted to make sure it wasn't food and make sure it was biological material. So we do know that she vomited at least twice in the vehicle. Once again, the person that we're talking about more than likely uses a hot shot, a stun gun, some type of weapon like that. And so if you give somebody a hot shot that's not used to any of that, one of the natural reflexes is you vomit.
Is that the reason you know that or that you suspect a stun gun was used?
Well, I believe, like I said, Miss Maitland was an expert in all the martial arts. Okay, a lot of people don't know that. I believe in a life and death situation, she could handle herself. And from all evidence that I've seen from the vehicle and everything, it looks like the struggle took place in the vehicle. And for number one, that would be because the perpetrator didn't want her blood in his vehicle. And the minute traces of blood we found was very lucky. It was like just bigger than a pinhead. It took a light source to find it. That's what I'm saying. This guy don't leave nothing behind. The same as the fingerprints. More likely, it's not the perpetrators. Okay? And even if it was the perpetrators, then once again, this is a guy that's never been fingerprinted. But I don't think he'd take that chance, because if he's doing other cases, then fingerprints are going to add up, and they're going to start saying, hey, well, these fingerprints match on certain cases. So, but I can say this, every fingerprint that we collected, it looked bigger than a female's fingerprint.
Could it be the state police fingerprint?
I would hope it wouldn't be, because they're supposed to go in their sterile atmosphere like me. I wore a cap, a mask, and purple scrubs. I was covered head to toe when I entered that vehicle. We bag tag it, seal it, and all that. Well, I sent you the receipt. This last evidence we turned over, we make them sign for it. See, so that person there serves the chain of custody, just in case it's used in court or whatever. Chain of custody is protected. And then when Lieutenant Miller came on the case, which he was a godsend. As far as he knew at that time, that evidence that we had turned in, all that in 2004, was still sitting on the shelf. Now here's something that it's mind-boggling. This evidence we collected out of the vehicle in October 2004. They didn't call me until October 2010. We had that evidence for 6 years, and they were surprised we kept that evidence and had it preserved. And I said, we don't get rid of stuff like that. That's our job, to keep stuff like that.
What prompted them to call you in 2010?
I can only speculate what I've been told. I haven't been able to confirm it. My initial thing I was told was everything they collected, which I was told this years ago, it didn't lead nowhere. Maybe they wanted what we had. Maybe now they're going to check the flex cuffs, the underwear, the syringe. And because, like I said, after we turn over that cap, if they look at that syringe, they're going to see if they match. That's a solid piece of evidence. That's no coincidence. I'm telling you, what's the chances of that happening? And then the hair in the flex club, run things, see if it's her hair. I don't know what was done with that evidence. I was also told at one time maybe it wouldn't lead nowhere, but they wanted all the evidence that might be related to the case all in one place. So that led me to believe that everything that we ever turned over would be tested. That was my belief. Now, whether it was or not, I have no way of knowing that. Because Lieutenant Miller, he's no longer on the case. So, and I hated to see that happen, because he cooperated with us 100%. If there was areas that need to be searched, I'd call him up on a Friday, say, hey, we're heading up there this weekend. What do you need done? He would tell us what he wanted us to do.
What do you think it was about him that made him, it sounds like he came in and instilled a new energy in the case. What was it about him that you think just kind of like put some life into it?
You know, I really don't know his age, but to me, he was a younger man, and very soft-spoken, and he just had that personality, and that's what I mean. He was a go-getter. Well, I called the Vermont State Police up, and they sent me to him because he had the investigation in. I told him what we was doing and everything, and like I said, He cooperated 100%. He was just that type of guy. He, like I said, he's like us. We're not beyond asking for help. Same way with him.
Back to the syringe real quick. Is that like a syringe used for
Insulin?
Yeah,
Insulin, junkies used whatever they're hitting up, that type. They're usually 26 gauge needles. I don't know if people know this or not, but see, on a syringe, okay, down where the needle is, there's a collar on them. A lot of them's orange, green, blue. Okay, we got a cap that matches the blue color of the needle blue. See, they're identical match. I just don't think that's a coincidence. And that was my saying. Run what's inside the syringe. See what's in it.
And they never got back to you on that?
No, like I said, I don't know what they've done with this evidence, but okay, exactly the underwear. Same size and style. Now, what is the chance? And believe me, these underwear was hid. It was a fluke chance they were even found.
Where were they hid?
Well, we had this place on top of a mountain that we used for what we call a think tank or a break area. And plus we had a dog with us. We was stretching our legs and everything. Well, the underwear was buried, but on the waistband, it had that glitter on it. Well, it just so happened I was standing outside the van smoking a cigarette, and the sun hit that glitter to where it shined. So I naturally went over there and started, noticing, hey, it was a band of a piece of clothing. So I got out my tools and started peeling everything back. And see, that's another thing. This was in May. They hadn't been out there that long. She was taken on March 19th, 2004. This is May 15th, 2004.
And how far away from the scene of the scene of her car? How far away was it?
Not very far. And see, that's what I mean. To dump evidence, they could have come back at a later time. We know at the time that she was abducted, they didn't get up that way. Say about 10 days later, yes, they could have.
So you think the person went back to the scene and bury that?
They all take souvenirs, and yes, they always go back to the scene, always. That's been proven constantly. Mm-hmm. For some reason, there's just that trigger in their mind. They go back. And see, the whole thing I'm trying to make on this guy, whoever he is, this is not his first rodeo, or he would have left evidence behind. He would have made too many mistakes. This ain't his first rodeo. He's done this before.
In the list of what you found in the car, it says 3 sets of flicks cuffs. Can you elaborate a little bit as to what a flicks cuff is?
Well, it's a flex cuff, and what it is, it's like a zip tie, but it's bigger to handle the pressure from a human. And it has a clasp where you zip it down like a locking mechanism. And in the locking mechanism, when you pull it tight on a person, is where the samples of hair are located.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, I've worked with zip ties before. Once you lock that into place, it doesn't unlock, right?
Right. See, they've been cut off of somebody. We do know that.
In the locking area of that's where the hair was found. Is this hair that was long enough where it was someone's hair on their head, or was it maybe wrist hair or something?
Let's put it this way. One of them was about 13, 14 inches long.
Did you find any accurate comparison between that hair and Brianna's?
Like I said, they haven't said if they did or not. Yeah, I wish I had that type of equipment.
So what do you think the possibility is that there is definitive evidence on those swatches or on something that they've already collected, and they just don't have conclusive information to pin it on the person that is top on their suspect list?
I think the fingerprint tape was left behind because they got excited for what they seen in the back seat. But what was on the back seat, this, that, and the other, was it biological? I don't believe it was blood, because I believe when we went through it, we still would have found traces. Even though they cut out stuff, you don't get it all. So I don't think it was blood. It could have been semen. But like I said, once again, that was from the time they had the car and processed it, and then they had released that they had no evidentiary value that came out with doing the car. Now, so like I said, if they was hiding things back then, yeah, they probably could have. But just recently have they come out and said, well, they found DNA. Now, my understanding, I don't know, I haven't confirmed this yet, but since they have a DNA profile, it's supposed to be entered in the CODIS. Well, if it's entered in the CODIS, they haven't got a hit. So whoever left this DNA behind has never had a serious crime enough to have his blood taken and entered in CODIS.
So you think the person used a taser to get her to
stop struggling?
For one thing, I believe some type of drugs was used because of the vomit. I don't think a taser would make her react like that, but I could be wrong. But I've seen cases where kids has been tasered, and they didn't have that type of reaction. I believe the taser was to keep her in control. Because, see, it's very easy to get a taser. A handheld taser, it's very easy to get one of those.
The spot of blood, you said it was the size of a pinhead, right?
Just a little bit bigger than that. There was like 3 of them. And now what it looked like to me, from the experience I do have, it was like somebody got pricked with something, and that was the cast off from it.
It is your opinion that this blood is from the person responsible?
Like I said, that I don't know. It could be Miss Maitland's, or it could be the perpetrators. Like I said, all I know is we collected it and turned it into them. Whatever they done with it after, I don't have a clue.
From what you gathered when you were looking into the car, you said it appeared as though the struggle started in the front seat and made its way to the back seat. Is the scenario, and I don't want to speculate too much here, but is a possible scenario that someone was hiding in her back seat and waited for the right moment once she got out of work? Let's say they're hiding in the back seat, she's driving, they wait for the right moment, and then they spring up on her. Is that the scenario that you work with when you're putting the pieces together?
No, we haven't used that scenario in this case. It's been thought about, but for the simple fact was, okay, if there was somebody in the back seat, that means another person involved in another vehicle. Because if the guy, let's say his vehicle was still parked towards Montgomery, it was 1.3 miles. Okay, that time of night and it was during the ski season, if somebody would happen to see you walk down the road, you could be identified.
Understood. That makes a lot of sense.
I mean, I could be wrong. And see, and then another thing, yes, there has been serial killers that has partners and everything, but like I said, when you're dealing with 2 people, that's when they can't keep their mouth shut. And this has been 12 years. See, the same thing about the drug community. Everybody kept pushing off on the drug community. Well, I've met a lot of them. I stopped a lot of their business. They were a bunch of hotheads. They couldn't keep their mouth shut. Well, let's look at it this way. The first weekend I was up there, I found out about their drug business. Okay, if they can't keep their drug business secret from me, how can they keep an abduction and a killing secret up there? No, I just don't think that's possible. I'm from New York, and the first weekend, yeah, I knew where everybody was doing their dirty deeds.
Can you tell us more about the green fibers that you found?
There was 3 green fibers. One of the pictures I pointed direction of where we found one of them. But now, to me, it's an off-green color to where, but it looks like, okay, you know how jackets and coats, at the end, they have, cloth or some type of material down at the end of them, the cuffs? Okay, that's what it looks like to me. It looks like material from a cuff that has been torn from the cuff of some type of jacket. I can tell you this, that fiber is not connected to Miss Maitland, not at her parents' house, not at her place of residence, and not at her workplace, and the fiber doesn't match the color of fibers in her car. So it is what I consider a foreign fiber.
How do you follow up on that?
Well, you just have it just in case you come across somebody and there's evidence collected. You just never know. So a lot of people don't realize a lot of cases is solved by hair and fiber. Because that person's hair and fiber or your hair and fiber is in that location. There's no way it should be there. Well, see, they got you dead right. It's just as good as DNA.
The damage to the back of the car, is that definitely damage that was made from backing up into the barn?
From all indications, yes. And plus, see, a lot of people don't know is it hit with such force, the rear end got hung up on the foundation. It wasn't movable. They couldn't have drove it from that spot.
Does it seem to you that Brianna was trying to desperately get out of some kind of struggle, and she hit reverse, and and that was a tactic of hers to try to escape, was to just slam on the gas, and she happened to slam it on in reverse?
That's a very good indication. Here's another thing. We know she wasn't ran off the road because it was 1.3 miles from the workplace to where the car was found. We done reenactments. That's another thing we do. We done reenactments. And in that point of time, okay, even though the roads were clear, and it was 50, let's say she was a careful driver, she was going 40. Even going 40 and 50 and 1.3 miles, you cannot force a car off the road in that length of time. No, you just can't do it. More than likely, yes, she was in the vehicle when this all came down, and yes, more likelihood, yes, she threw it in reverse to try to get away from the situation, or let's say the person had hold of her car door. So any little thing might have knocked him off the car door, whatever. The whole thing of it is she wasn't supposed to stop there. We do know that. And she was on her way, like I say, she was on her way home.
Do you have any knowledge of this location? Was this a popular location for individuals to stop? Teenagers, late teens, early 20s. Was this a popular location for people to stop and hang out? I know in the town I grew up in, there was a couple of locations where, it was like, oh, you're going down to wherever.
This was like that in a little bit because it had what I call a folklore history. That history was two brothers that lived there was beaten and robbed. I think that was in 1986, and the perpetrators were never caught. And that's been told through the years around the campfires and so on and so on. And see, that's what we was trying to prevent Miss Maitland's case.